Welcome back, everyone, to Time to Talk. We've switched up the intro today, so this is Grace introducing, and your other host is
Faith.
And today, we're going to put Faith on the hot seat. I'm going to ask her some questions, kind of more interview style today, and pick her brain about a few topics that I know she's incredibly passionate about. So
goodness. Should I be nervous?
No.
I'm feeling nervous.
I don't know.
At least my palms don't sweat when I get nervous, but I'm kind of getting nervous.
You'll be fine. Trust me, you know a lot about these topics, so don't worry about not knowing the answer to questions.
Okay.
So without further ado, I'm going to start off with some easy questions. So first, what's one of your favorite hobbies?
One of my favorite hobbies is dancing. I feel like that's a cop-out answer, so I'll give two others: baking or playing piano.
Okay, what's one of the most annoying things? Reverse. What is your biggest pet peeve?
My biggest pet peeve is people saying something as if they know exactly what they're talking about when it's very evident that they don't know what they're talking about. I don't know if that makes sense. Basically, I don't like people who act knowledgeable who aren't actually knowledgeable. There you go.
Okay.
I don't like stupidity. And I don't like stupidity masked as intelligence.
Oh. So you don't like those kind of people. Well, there's two kinds of people I'm thinking of right now. You don't like the kinds of people who barge into a conversation and immediately start talking about the topic like they've been there since the beginning and know exactly what's going on.
I don't like know-it-alls, and I don't like smart alecs, whatever you want to call them.
Okay.
So I guess the second pet peeve, which goes along with what you just said, is I also don't like people who talk over other people. I find that very annoying. Just be patient and let the other person finish their thought and then say what you're going to say, because there are very few people on this face of the planet who ever have something that is more worthwhile to be said than someone else. And I say that in that I don't like stupidity, but it's not that I'm necessarily going to interrupt someone who's saying something stupid and thinks it's smart. It's more of I will just walk away from that conversation, or not always so gently, but correct them afterwards in some way, shape, or form. But I just don't like, my second biggest pet peeve is probably interruption. Not that there's not a place, because when you're really excited about something, now I'm just rambling on too long about this. Okay, so we'll stop. I don't like stupidity and I don't like interruptions.
Okay. What's the strangest thing you've ever eaten?
Calamari, which is fried octopus. Nope, fried squid. Fried something tastes like rubber. It's gross.
It's fried seafood. Blech.
Seafood's just nasty in general.
Yeah, that's
calamari.
That's another story. What is your favorite thing about someone in your family?
My favorite thing, so I don't think I'm going to pick a single person. I am grateful that I live in a family full of other girls who happen to all be very good at giving hugs.
Aww.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
I'm not like a very tactile, physical touch type of person, but I do appreciate a hug from any of my sisters or my mom.
Aw. I like your answer. Not like I'm supposed to be judging your answers anyway, because so you could have said something completely different, and I probably would have liked it just as much.
Sorry that I left you out of this, Dad, but
you give
nice hugs
too. Yeah. What is one of your weirdest quirks?
My weirdest quirks?
Yes. Your weirdest quirks.
Oh gosh, now all I'm thinking is the things I can do. Like, shake my eyeballs or something, but that's not a weird quirk.
No, the quirk would be what's some behavior that you
I know.
habitually do that other people would probably think is strange. So for me, as our listeners know, it's fearing to hurt my pen's feelings all of the time.
Well, yours are like physical ones, is you tend to chew your tongue or nod your head a lot.
Yes.
When someone else is talking,
or
you're
say yes a lot.
I don't know
in
if
conversations
I do
with
weird.
people.
I mean, I just look angry all the time because that's my resting face. But I don't know if I have a weird quirk. I mean, I do typical things sometimes, like I'll mess with my fingernails, or I'll shake my foot, or I tend to sway a lot. I tend to sway a lot when I talk or something. Mm-hmm. I don't stand still very often, mostly because it just hurts my heels. I have to constantly shift my weight, otherwise it hurts my heels. But that's not weird, is it?
I'm not sure. Well, because when you start saying that, I think I probably have a weirder quirk where when I stand still and I'm trying to stand straight, no matter how many times I try not to, I will always lock my knees.
Yeah, I don't do that. I guess, okay, this is the other thing that came to mind is ever since I figured out that both of my hands, I could do that, the Star Trek, like, you know, you separate, you have 2 fingers and 2 fingers. I don't really know what it's called, some type of salute. But I can do that with both hands. And ever since I found out I could do that, I have a tendency that, you know, when I'm dancing and I'll do like a shuffle to either side and my hands go out, my fingers will just naturally separate into that Star Trek salute. It's the weirdest thing, but I find my fingers, it's a natural position for them. Also, the other thing that I did when I was younger, and I remember this, I taught myself how to burp, like an intentional burp. I can make myself burp, and I don't know why I thought it was cool to teach myself to do that. But then the problem is I got to a point where it was literally I would do that every other breath. It was an uncontrollable burping, which it was gross. I don't know why.
I mean,
but that's what happened.
Maybe your weird quirk is also kind of like our younger sisters, where sometimes when you both get the hiccups, you hiccup and burp at the same time.
I know, it's not fun.
Which doesn't make sense at all. I don't know. Okay, so if you had to describe yourself in 3 words, what would they be?
Determined, curious, and no, I'm going to use a different word. Determined, inquisitive, and thorough.
Okay. Speaking of all 3 of those things, which actually surprisingly line up with everything I want to talk about, you know, imagine that. I must know you so well.
Perfect segue. I mean, it's almost like we're twins.
Almost.
And we can read each other's minds.
Almost. So we'll go with determined first.
Okay.
Do I want to go with... Maybe I'll go backwards. You said thorough.
Switch it up a little bit. Why
thorough.
not?
We're going to go backwards. So I wanted to talk with you. These aren't really questions, but I just want to kind of bring up these topics because, again, I know these are things that you really enjoy. So I had on here, I wanted to talk with you about organization and planning.
Mm-hmm. What do you want to know?
How you do that, why you do that, why you enjoy those things.
I'm a person who...
Let's start with this.
Yeah, that would
Define for yourself what the difference between tidying up / cleaning and then when you actually talk about organization in general. Because I've had several conversations with friends about this, and I've come to the conclusion that all of us have slightly different interpretations of cleaning up in particular.
I mean, tidying up is seeing something that's not in the right place and going and putting it in the right place. Mm-hmm. It's more of as you're going throughout your other daily activities, you kind of just pick things up and put them where they belong, or, you know, you clean up your dishes after you've made a meal. Mm-hmm. It's like the really surface level type, just make sure things look generally where they're supposed to belong. That's tidying up. Cleaning would be, you know, you actually take out the vinegar and the rag and the toilet cleaner and everything, and you actually, you know, deep clean. I mean, well, not deep clean, because deep clean is different than actual cleaning. But yeah, cleaning is when you actually bring out your supplies and
sanitize
and bring
areas.
Out the vacuum and clean things up and off and wipe surfaces off and all of that. Mm-hmm. Deep cleaning is obviously when you go to town and you mop the floor.
And pull out everything out of the refrigerator and scrub it.
Yes. Or reorganize
pull everything out of the
kitchen
freezer downstairs,
cabinets.
defrost it. And
Yep, deep cleaning is definitely put your hair up in a top knot, get on your nastiest yoga pants and t-shirt. And
blare music.
Yep. Preferably you do that when no one else is here so that you can dance while you're cleaning.
What is the movie? The one Tom Cruise slides out, that everyone does it. He slides out in just the t-shirt. And it's like dancing to the song. You know what I'm talking about.
I know the clip, but I can't remember
don't know
the
where the
movie title.
movie's from. But yes, this is what I'm envisioning using deep cleaning by yourself.
Yes.
We all know this happens when you're by yourself.
Yes. And then organization. For me, when I think of the levels of cleaning, it's obviously tidying up, cleaning, deep cleaning, organization can kind of happen at any level of those, but my personal preference is to do it either after a clean or after a deep clean. Depends on what you're organizing. Like my closet, I don't need to do a deep clean until I've organized my closet, because they kind of go hand in hand. You clean as you organize, or you organize as you clean, whatever way you want to put it. Organizing a space like the kitchen, that would happen after a deep clean. Organizing my desk would pretty much just happen after I've wiped off the dust. To go back to the more fun, which is why I do this, not the definitions, I'm a person who likes to live an ordered life, and so I like things in my life to be ordered, and I just function better when things flow according to a patterned design. I don't know if that makes sense. I had a different way I was going to describe this, and then I have completely blanked on how I was going to describe this.
Well, I know we've talked before, and you've mentioned things about efficiency or process and optimizing things.
Well, I guess part of it is, I mean, it's an innate desire for things to be ordered and clean and everything, but I think too, when you add on top of it the understanding that we are creatures of habit, and 90% of our days, I don't know if that's the actual number, but 90% of our days are lived on habit, that's where it kind of, for me, becomes another motivation to have an organized space, because then you increase the efficiency between all of your habits. And it's not necessarily for the purpose of being productive or anything. It's just more of, if you don't have to put thought into something, if you can set up a system that will work, and so you don't have to always think every single day what's going to happen now, it frees up your time to spend on other things.
So this is why I wanted to ask you about organization and how you defined it, because I know lots of people, when they think organization, will think of the color-coded Post-it notes, or the pretty desk, or an organized closet, or things like that, or, you know, pots and pans or spice rack that are perfectly ordered or alphabetized. And I know that you have a different perspective from just, maybe you do those things, and I know you kind of do, because those things help in terms of labeling or knowing where things are. But I think for you, organization means more than just you have specific colors for specific items in a journal.
I very much recently have started looking into minimalism and reading a lot about it and just learning more about it, because I am definitely, if you think of a formal organization system or lifestyle, I would definitely subscribe to minimalism more. I've tried the color coding techniques. I've tried bullet journaling. I've tried using digital calendar in every app possible, and I've changed Trello boards 10 gazillion times. And I've tried the whole, like, you write the to-do list and you post it on your mirror someplace where you'll see it, or the Ivy Lee method where you plan out your priorities the night before. And I've tried so many different types of things. And part of it is, while I'm a determined person, I'm not always a consistent person. The other part of it is, I don't think your system of organization should take more time than whatever the task is that you're planning for. Like, it shouldn't take you more time to set up your bullet journal than it should actually checking off the to-do list that you've written in your bullet journal. And for me, it became a matter of, I'm spending 5 hours every Sunday drawing out this month template for the calendar.
It was basically creating your weekly calendar was a item on the to-do list.
Yeah, I mean, upholding the organization system became a whole nother process that I had to maintain, and I didn't like that. Like, I think in many ways, simpler tends to be better. Not always, but simpler tends to be more sustainable. And I know there are plenty of people who have very elaborate systems that work for them, but for me, when it's like organization is part of who I am, it's not helpful when organization becomes something outside of myself, and it becomes so elaborate. And also, it's not necessarily a value, because it's not something that I have to strive for. Hence, I don't want it to take away from my actual values and the goals I have for my life.
So speaking of goals, and I know we've mentioned journaling a little bit in terms of bullet journals, but one of the other things I wanted to talk about was it kind of paired with this idea of routines, and I know morning routines is a big thing you've also talked about. What role has journaling played in your life?
Oh, I thought we were talking about morning routines, and now you just totally...
We'll talk about morning routines after, but I want to hear
Right.
about journaling first.
Journaling is only something that I've recently started doing. There's different kinds of journalers, and I'm lumping in diaries, keeping a diary into this too. When I first started when I was younger, I think probably when I was 13 is when I started actually keeping a diary.
Mm-hmm.
It was very much here's what I did today, here's the people I interacted with. Basically, I gave you the more in-depth calendar version of whatever I did that day. So it was kind of boring. And it's amusing for me to go back and read those entries because you can very much tell that it's a 13-year-old writing these.
Yes.
I mean, when I kept it up consistently, you could tell that I would get into more of here's how I'm feeling today, but that wasn't necessarily something natural for me to do. And I also had a mindset of, like, I was writing for my future kids or something. Not that they would, I don't know why I ever thought they would be interested in that. But, I mean, you do kind of, to a certain extent, think, hey, I like hearing stories of my parents' childhood, and they don't apparently remember a lot of things, so I'm just going to start keeping a historical record of my life, so then when my kids actually ask, hey, what were you like growing up at my age, I could tell them because I have a reference of that day.
And I think to a certain extent, I kind of started a journal because at the time we would read both.
We would read the
published
Dear
journals.
America diaries.
Yes, and I think we had recently would have read the Diary of Anne Frank and things like that, and all of those ones. Some of them are fiction. Obviously, the Diary of Anne Frank is not, and I felt like the way they wrote their diaries, which very much was more of a here's what happened today. Granted, they were probably more interesting than what I wrote in mine, but I thought that's what a diary was supposed to be.
Yeah, and I think to a certain extent, I also had that attitude of not only was I writing for my kids, but it was also I was writing for posterity, and that, something amazing would happen, and here's my journal of me living through it, and this will be published one day, and kids around the world will read it. My life was really not that interesting at 13, and nothing amazing happened. There weren't even Olympics going on that year because it's an uneven year. Anyway, that's kind of how I started journaling, and so it didn't really last. I like writing. It took me a very long time to just start writing for myself. And so I think I would express myself in different ways. Like, I would write letters to people. I find that journaling is more of a brain dump type of writing style. Whereas writing letters, and I would write them to myself, I would write them to my future self, I would write them to other people and never send them. But just the very act of addressing somebody else in a letter, it forces you to really think and consider the words that you're using. It is very much a craft. That's where, I went from diary writing to more letter writing and more spurts too of I kind of got into creative writing and expressing myself through trying to write also really bad poetry at one point. But it was mostly just random things. I tried to get into morning pages several years ago too, which is the method where first thing in the morning or at some point in the morning, you just write 3 pages straight through and you don't think about what you're writing. So it is very much a brain dump of whatever you have on mind, whether it's your dream from the past night or stress about the upcoming day or whatever. It's just, you just write 3 pages nonstop, and then you can keep them or you can throw them away, whatever you want to do with them. And I kept that up probably pretty consistently for a few months, but it became me just complaining for 3 pages straight about my life, and I'm like, this is just not putting me in a healthy mindset. It's not working as I think it was intended to work, because it's really supposed to be a process that also gets your creative juices flowing. Mine's like, all that this is activating is my cynicism, so we're going to stop this. Especially because it also just became a chore in that I did it only to check off the box, and so it would end up really rambling, and I would just repeat myself over and over again in order to hit the word count and check the box off or whatever. So I did that for a while. When I finally started getting back into a consistent journaling rhythm is a couple Christmases ago, or maybe it was only, yeah, 2018 Christmas, I was given 2 journals. One was a daily journal, and it had 1 line for the morning, 1 line for the evening for the whole year. The other is a me journal, which is, we've actually used it before for one of our this or that quizzes on this podcast, because it gives you a ton of, like, list out your favorites of foods or spices or actors or actresses, your least favorites, yeah, and then it gives you this or that quizzes, or it
Random
just
facts
gives
about
you
yourself.
facts about yourself, or just really random things that a lot of them are just super fun. So when I got this for Christmas, I kind of made that my goal, that daily journal I would write in every single day for the whole year, and then I would also do the me journal, and that one was more of I did it a ton at first, and then I didn't do it, and then I did a ton, and then I didn't do it, and I still have a lot of it left to fill out. But for the most part, the daily journal, obviously there were some points where, I would write in it Friday morning, and then I wouldn't write it again until Monday morning, and so I would fill in for the weekend, pretending that I wrote on that day. But it did develop a pretty consistent practice of just writing down even just a sentence. That has now, it made me like writing more. It was still, I never had a designated journal that I would write in. It was more of, I had separate journals for things, and so, the journal that I kept school notes in was also the journal that if I had an epiphany during class, or I was just not present in class because I was thinking of something else, that journal became the one where I would just start writing about whatever was going on. I would do it in the one that I kept in notes for the sermons on Sundays. I had another one that was kind of just a catch-all journal, and I would just bounce back and forth. So it actually hasn't even been until this past June that I pulled out a notebook that I had used as my diary on and off again from 2013 to 2017. And I pulled it back out again this June and just started writing. And part of it was I relaxed my pressure on that I didn't need to write every day. I only needed to write when I felt like it. I didn't set any boundaries on what I was going to say, and I was also just writing for myself. I didn't set any expectations of here's who I'm writing for or anything. It was just purely whatever I wanted to say. So, some of it has turned into more of here's what I did this day, but a lot of it really is just here's what I'm experiencing, here's the emotions that I'm having, here's a detailed description of this event that happened and the impact it had on me. I'll write quotes that mean a lot to me. Recently I just had a scripture that I was writing and meditating on. So it's just a weird conglomeration of things. But I have found it very therapeutic, especially because there have been times where I'm a person who tends to be go, 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 and I always need to have something to do. And so journaling has developed a practice of just sitting still, and most importantly, also just sitting still with what I'm feeling, because I have a tendency not to want to do that. So it just in the past couple of weeks, it's meant a lot more to me, because there was a couple of weeks ago, I was having a really dull weekend and I didn't want to do anything. And so I just pulled out my journal and I started writing, and it was very helpful. And I started processing through some things and behaviors and beliefs that I have that I had never just made myself sit still long enough to actually start digging deeper. So my journaling has in some ways become almost an investigation of myself. I think that's probably one of the best ways to use journaling, is a self-awareness method, and just understanding yourself and how you fit into the world.
Absolutely, and I love hearing you talk about it, both organization and journaling, because I feel like so much of what you're saying is I've tried all of these different things, and sometimes they worked, but they didn't always work the way I wanted them to. And I think it was the very fact that you said it didn't work the way I wanted it to intrigued me, because whether or not you told you actually said it out loud or wrote it down somewhere, it seemed like you had a very clear idea in mind of what you wanted both organization and the systems you set up and journaling to do for you. And so to hear you kind of process through that and tell us out loud kind of the journey you went on with both of those things to arrive at where you are now, which again, knowing you probably will change that, maybe even next week or in a year from now, it might look different. But the journey that you've gone on, I think frees people up, because we haven't talked about morning routines yet. Not sure we're going to get to it in this episode, because that might actually require at least half of one itself. But I know it's something that when it comes to all of those things, it's very much an individual thing. And, you know, you mentioned morning pages. Lots of people rave about those and say they're amazing. You found they didn't work for you, which is totally okay, because I think we all feel the pressure sometimes that if it works so well for lots of people, it should work well for us. But that's not true. You mentioned letter writing. I think that's a fabulous idea. I never would actually sit down and write a letter and then not send it. So for me, it would be more stressful to sit down and write a letter just for the sake of processing my thoughts like that and then never actually send it to the person. But for you, it works. Or worked. I know, you know, sometimes journaling for me, and you mentioned it too, it doesn't help because it can put you in a more negative space. And so figuring out ways that it can be both lighthearted and help you process things, and then eventually when you're processing those things, help you to have conversations with people that you need to have. It's like you said with organization. Journaling isn't the end all be all. Organization isn't the end all be all. It's part of who you are and what you do, and helps you become the person you want to become.
Right. Organization is an external maximizing of your space.
Mm-hmm.
Journaling is like an internal maximizing of your ability to understand your emotions and understand other people's emotions and understand the beliefs that you have and how they impact your life and the behaviors that you have, and whether or not you want to change anything or areas for growth and your strengths and weaknesses. And I've never thought of it in the way that you were talking about it, but it makes sense, and it makes sense of who I am as a person too, because like I was just in our conversation that we were just having the other day, when I was saying I am a person who sees room for improvement in everything. I guess I very much lived that out too in my own everyday small ways, in that, you know, I have a tendency to want to do things right the first time and then get frustrated and always think that if I didn't get it right, it's always going to be wrong. But when I take that pressure off, I do allow myself to experiment a lot more and not be upset by the results or lack of results, and not even hold myself to a pressure of trying to maintain something for even a week, which is very freeing too. And it's something that I think to a certain extent I've realized more, and something that I want to continue embracing. It makes me laugh because, you know, people ask 5-year-olds what they want to be when they grow up, and typically they give the most bizarre answers. But the older I get, the more I'm like, I think 5-year-olds have an uncanny ability to recognize some gift in themselves and actually realize that they have a place in the world that uses that gift. So when I was younger, you know, I wasn't a girly girl. And in fact, the very first career that I remember wanting was a scientist. Specifically, it was, I wanted to be a paleontologist. And then it somehow got onto, well, maybe I want to be an astronaut instead. But it was consistently something in a scientific field is what interested me. Which is odd, because science was more of like a hobby favorite subject. That's a weird way of describing it. But, you know, it wasn't my favorite school subject. It was more of, I kind of like this. And like, you like a hobby versus your actual passionate dream job or whatever. But that was my answer growing up when I was 5, was I wanted to be a scientist. And I've never made this connection until now, that maybe it's because I recognize the fact that I love experimenting, and I love finding out what works and what doesn't work, and I love finding out the multiple ways to do something to achieve the same results, or how do you trick the system into getting different results, and constantly trying to find ways to improve things and build upon things or disprove things. Yeah, I don't know. That makes a lot more.
your epiphany for the day.
It is my epiphany for the day.
See,
and I thought I was smart
I just
now,
draw
but apparently
things
I
out
was a
of you,
complete
right?
genius at 5.
Oh my goodness. So a few things. One, you've just set up the transition perfectly.
I am rocking this transition thing.
I just know you so well. I'm like, I just need to ask this question.
You knew I was going to make this connection to my 5-year-old self and scientist.
Totally.
I believe you. I believe you.
You know what? You can be a scientist, and maybe I'm just somewhat psychic and just know how to read people's minds. But since you mentioned being a scientist and like doing those things, we're going to go to your second word.
Okay.
Which is inquisitive.
I did set this up perfectly.
You did set it up perfectly.
Okay, then maybe this is all attributable to me and the fact that I chose the correct words to describe myself at the beginning. I'm chalking this up to my genius, not your psychic abilities.
Wow.
We'll call it even.
Okay. So we're going to kind of go lighthearted. I want you to talk about, one, you have an incredibly large puzzle collection.
Yes, I do.
Of 1,000+ piece puzzles.
Yes.
And you also have this could have been your weird quirk if it kind of qualifies it as a quirk, but you also have this obsessive need and love to find the most random facts, whether it's scientific or just a piece of trivia or something interesting that you can randomly insert into a conversation because you love doing that thing.
Yeah. Some people like to talk about the weather. I will walk into a conversation and be like, did you happen to know that the United States food industry is cheating us out of water? I find it fun.
Why?
Okay, so are we talking about puzzles or something, or what are we talking about now? Because I just inserted myself and I don't know what your actual question was or where you wanted to go with this.
Just why you love those things. What inquisitiveness looks like for you and why it's part of you.
Well, on the puzzle side, I like putting pieces of things. I am a person who I can see both the big picture to things, but I'm also extremely detail oriented, so I can get down in the nitty-gritty. And I think that's why I love puzzles so much, because they capture that aspect of the individual pieces that are all being put together to form a whole. And I love my puzzle collection specifically. I have a lot of 3D puzzles, and those are my favorite. And I think it's part of it is the intricacy, because I guess in some ways they reflect actual life in that you have so many intricate storylines that are happening that are all somehow being woven together into a whole picture. And I also just like the cleanliness and of a puzzle, that every piece is going to fit together ultimately, no matter how long it takes you, and it's going to form a picture. And I think for me it provides that stability of actual life goes haywire and is very messy, and puzzles are kind of like a grounding force of things will fit together in the end. It also, puzzles provide the perfect excuse for me to go off on my own and be completely focused on one activity. And I have the added benefit of not a lot of people tend to like jigsaw puzzles.
True.
So I can just do my own thing and no one judges me for it.
Well, some people do.
Well, they might judge me in the process, but when I show them my completed result, like the 3D Taj Mahal, no one can judge me then, because they're like, that's just amazing.
Yeah.
So, my only rule with building puzzles is you're more than welcome to help me, but I get to place the last piece. Always. Otherwise, if you place the last piece, I will take it out and put it back in, because that's me. That was my job.
There's a video, it may even be a Vine, but it's this husband and wife, and they're putting together a puzzle, and they're foreign, or because it's in a different language. So, but you can totally tell she's really, really mad at him, because he places the last piece on the puzzle, and she screams at him, and then she throws the entire puzzle off the table.
Unfortunately, that would be me. I'd be like, well, dang, all of that work now to waste because you placed the last puzzle piece. Now you go build it. I mean, you might as well, because you put the last piece in. Forget my hard work. yeah, this is also why it breaks my heart when I come to the end of a puzzle and I realize there is one piece missing.
Wow.
It's very sad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the puzzle side.
Yes. Random trivia. Facts you like
Random
knowing.
trivia. I don't really know why. I love understanding how the world works. And I love understanding all of the little pieces and the unknown things or the misunderstood things. You know, I don't like taking things at face value.
Mm-hmm.
I love understanding weird things, too. You know, things that we take for granted, like hula hoops. They're such an everyday item, but I want to know their story.
Mm-hmm.
In a weird way, you're the type of person who wants to know a person's story.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the type of person who just wants to know a thing's story.
True.
Or something, yes, typically something more abstract than an individual. Not that I don't want to know something about an individual, but mine is more like, let me learn everything that I possibly can about this country, or this product, or this process, or this scientific theory, or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I like it. It's fun.
And the amount of times you have random facts about planes, or shipwrecks, or the origins of products that we use all of the time and don't even think about nowadays.
Yeah.
Or countries. I'm partially amazed because I know a lot of random facts, but the amount of random facts you know, I just think.
Now I'm trying to think of them. The problem is I'm blanking on everything.
Listen to or watch that you learn all these things. I find it fascinating because it is, like you said, in many ways we are completely identical in a lot of ways. In some, there's a gray area where we are very similar, but we do it slightly differently. And then there is a whole range of areas where you and I, if we are not polar opposites, are very different. And this is definitely one of those areas where, yes, as much as I like learning random facts about things, but when it comes to science, I tend to learn random facts about animals because biology was one of my favorite things. I don't just learn a random fact about anything scientific because I just want to learn something new.
Yeah.
That fascinates me. And I also don't really have a tendency to bring them up in conversations. And it's just, I love your enthusiasm about the most obscure things. Like, you intentionally seek out those obscure things that the likelihood of it coming up in a conversation is pretty much 0%. And yet you somehow manage to weave it in.
I don't know.
And it's just adorable.
If those things exist, they deserve to be known. And if they deserve to be known, they also deserve to be talked about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's like God's Easter eggs in the planet. That it's fun to point out things. And I'm trying to think of like a fun fact to give. The only thing that's coming to mind is that the British air raids over Germany during World War II were not actually a military initiative. It's actually because Churchill was friends with, here's the problem. I was just explaining this today. I have a tendency to tell these stories, but I forget like a key name of something, whether it's the name of the principal I'm trying to talk about or the name of the person. I will forget the actual names. And so I just give these descriptions. But Churchill was friends with this savant. That's how you say it, right?
Mm-hmm. Pretty sure.
And now I'm going to have to give a definition of a savant.
Yes. She doesn't even know how to spell it.
I know how to spell it, but I'm not exactly sure how to say it. And I'm also, like, I kind of generally understand what it means, but I also don't fully understand what it means. So we're going to go to Google quickly, one, so that I can get the guy's name, and two, I can actually describe.
While she's searching, since you mentioned Churchill, I'm pretty sure this is the same Churchill, but I think I was listening to a podcast about him, and he had a very fascinating life, and if this is the same guy, he was involved in World War I, yes, pretty sure. And he played bagpipes during battles. And at some point in time was basically the only man left unwounded in the group of soldiers he was with.
No, I don't think we're
This
thinking
might
about
be
the
a
same
different
person.
Churchill. I know it was a Churchill.
Wow. Okay, so the person is Frederick Lindemann, and he was known as the PROF.
Short for
That's what he was
professor?
called.
Or just
Yes.
the prof? Okay.
And I don't know if he was actually a savant, but he was brilliant, okay?
Mm-hmm.
He was brilliant, but he was not personable.
Mm-hmm.
But he and Churchill were super close friends. And the thing with Lindemann is he was the type of person who didn't care at all about other people unless you were his best friend, and then he would like support you to death. Regardless of whether or not you were wrong, he would support you. So the air raids that the British Air Force conducted against Berlin and everything were not actually backed by the British military. It was actually because when Churchill was considering military initiatives to discourage Germany and stop the war and everything, is he wanted reports conducted on what would be the most effective way to use our Air Force to go about breaking the German military and leading to peace and everything. And so Lindemann wrote up his own report, and then they had a group in the military or whatever do their own report. And come to find out, Lindemann actually made up absolutely everything he put into this report.
Oh my goodness.
Solely for the fact that he could prove in air quotes to Churchill that these air raids against German civilians and bombing their towns would be a good idea and would break the spirit of the German people. And because Churchill wanted his plan, because he wanted to go and bomb German civilians in German cities, and because he wanted that, he decided to scrap the actual military report, which was correct, and take Lindemann's and go and bomb Germany. So, yeah, that happened. Here's the thing.
Wow.
It would amaze you how many times throughout history things happened not because of a rational reason, but because someone was friends of a friend's or a friend of another friend, or they were just... Lots of things in life happen because of emotions, and they also don't always happen to be good things that happen.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we say we're rational creatures for the sole fact that we want to believe that we're rational creatures, but really almost all the decisions we make on a daily basis are completely irrational.
Yeah, I think calling ourselves
that's
rational
a bad
creatures
thing.
makes us feel better about ourselves. But what's the saying that decisions are... I don't know if there's a phrase, but I know there's the idea that people think they make a decision, but their emotions actually make the decision for them. Like they make decisions based on emotions, not fact. And most people think that they make decisions based on fact, not emotions. But it's actually reverse. Okay.
People want to believe that they make almost all of their decisions because of a rational, thought-out process of facts, when most of the time it literally just comes down to how you feel about something.
So here's the other interesting fact that I learned today is Americans tend to elect tall presidents. And we have not actually elected a president shorter than 6 feet in the past 10 presidents.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We could talk about why, but I don't think either of us really knows that.
And it's funny because if you actually go back through history, every president has been progressively taller than the one before.
So we elected someone who was 6'5" after. Well, okay, I should take that back, because I just realized since Lincoln was assassinated, technically, the person who ascended to presidency. Wow.
Became the president, the vice
Who
president.
became the president when he was assassinated. We don't actually talk about this guy.
Now,
Do you
remember his name?
I don't think he would have been taller than Lincoln, because at that point in time, 6'4" was.
Yeah, Lincoln was very tall for
pretty tall.
his time period.
I know his name was Andrew, and I'm blanking on his last name. I feel really badly for this guy. See, I feel badly for these people who could have done equally amazing things as the person right before them, but because the person right before them was such a larger-than-life character, everybody forgets about them. Wasn't it Andrew Johnson?
Yeah, you're correct.
Okay, there we go. I wanted to say Jackson. I'm like, I know that's not right.
No.
I know that's not right.
No.
Because Andrew Jackson's a different president.
Yeah, and lots of people hated him.
Although lots of people hate every president.
I know.
I think the only one who was potentially universally loved would have been George Washington. But even he had people who disagreed with him.
Yeah.
So.
But we're not supposed to be taking this podcast into a political
Nope.
zone.
We're backing up.
Sorry that
backing
all of
out,
my
backing
interesting
out.
facts today had to do with something about
War
politics and government.
politics.
Yeah.
Wow. Fantastic. I was going to make a comment when you were talking about 5-year-olds.
Uh-huh.
Because I didn't make it then, but it's still
relevant.
It's
Everything's
my
relevant.
random fact that relates to it. And it was, I had watched a video that they brought in a group of people of all different ages. And the video starts off with middle-aged people, which is a broad category. So it was like anywhere from 20 to like 50-ish aged people. And the question was, if there was one thing you would change about your body, what would it be? And so, as expected, a lot of people were saying, like, I would change my nose, or I would change the size of my forehead, or I would be taller, or I would change the color of my eyes, or things along those sides. And then they brought in the next part is kids, and they bring in kids. And the kids start saying, I wish I had a mermaid tail, or my hair was purple, or that when I was in water, I could change into a fish. And it was so cute because, like, I expected these kids to either say, I would change nothing about myself, or I didn't really know if they would change something about themselves, what I even expected them to say. But it was just adorable to hear these kids who were like 10 and younger just, I mean, there's a little girl who I think was like 1 or 2, and she's like, I wouldn't change anything. And it was so cute to hear them say this. And it's like you said, as much as, you know, kids are ignorant about some things, it's also, they also have incredibly deep insights into,
because they have a certain level of innocence, they also have a certain level of clarity that as adults we don't have because we have life experience.
Yeah. And it's they were like so totally free from any peer pressure or what society says is like beautiful, right? Or anything like that. And so to hear, you know, a little girl say, I wish that I could have a mermaid tail, it kind of brought up my own dreams of, you know, when you and I would go swimming and our family joked about us being fishes because we would stay underwater so long. I'm like, we would pretend to be dolphins and mermaids. And the amount of times I really wished I was a mermaid is kind of ridiculous. And you forget those things, and it's sweet parts of childhood. And the latter half was they brought in like a couple over 70 people, and it was sweet to hear one of the ladies said, you know, I would never change anything about me, and I've grown to love the way I am, and this body's allowed me to have an amazing life. And it was, you know, to go from the kids who are just gorgeous, innocent lights of crazy ideas, and to have her say that, it was, I just think people, as much as it was something that, it's going to be my bright example to balance out your war and politics examples of random facts, but it's like, as much as people want to get depressed about the world, and there's so much to get depressed about, it's little reminders like that of, hey, people are still beautiful and crazy and lovely and have unique stories to tell.
People are incredible
all the time. So that's my random fact
there you go
of the day and random story of the day.
That works.
So unless there's something else you want to talk about, we're going to go to a few rapid fire questions.
You're the one doing the interview. I don't know if you have more questions.
Well, my question is, anything else you want to talk about that we didn't talk about that you can talk about in 5 minutes?
Oh, well then no.
Okay. All right. Rapid fire. Texting or talking?
Texting. No, wait. I guess I interpret it as talking on the phone.
No, texting or talking?
Talking.
Okay. Unless it is talking on the phone?
Yeah, unless it's talking on the phone, then texting.
Okay. Favorite day of the week?
Friday.
Morning bird? Wow.
What did you just say?
I was going to say night owl. It's morning dove, isn't it? What is it? The only thing.
Early bird is what you're trying to say.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Morning dove. Morning bird. Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Okay.
I like morning bird better though.
Or morning dove, right? Okay. Wow.
Can I insert another random fact?
Yes.
So passenger pigeons disappeared in the 1950s because of global warming. Actually, I don't know if it was global warming, but passenger pigeons started disappearing. I don't know if they've totally disappeared everywhere or if it was just in this one place in New York that they disappeared, but they disappeared there in the 1950s because of environmental
changes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, also human pollution of the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay. Nickname... No. Never mind. We're skipping that one. Last song you downloaded.
Oh, goodness. I honestly don't know.
Last song you listened to.
Great question. I mean, I don't like that answer either. Dang it.
This is supposed to be rapid fire.
This is supposed to be rapid fire, but I honestly have no idea. And if I did, it was probably a song in French, and so I couldn't tell you. I mean, I guess, like, of the known people that I've recently downloaded / listened to would be Ava Max and Louis Capaldi.
Okay. Coffee or tea?
Coffee in the morning, tea at night. Mostly
it.
coffee, but I like a good cup of tea every so often, too.
Favorite holiday?
Favorite holiday?
My birthday. No, I'm joking.
No, not my birthday.
That's like my least favorite one.
I don't like my birthday. I don't like people celebrating me on my birthday. I mean, Christmas is kind of the only holiday that our family celebrates. So it kind of feels like that has to be the answer. What holidays happen in summer? I don't know. First day of summer is like a holiday to me.
Well, there's Memorial Day, there's the 4th of July, and then there's Labor Day.
Yeah.
So it's the beginning of summer, the middle of summer, the end of summer.
I mean, I guess if I'm going with a holiday that we actually celebrate like it's a holiday, it would have to be Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Invisibility or super speed?
Invisibility.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your driving?
7.
Okay.
7.
What's your favorite color?
Blue.
She hesitated.
I hesitated because blue is like everybody's answer. And I don't like being like everybody else. But I like blue. I like blue. I'm doing this in terms of colors I also like to wear. Like in pens, my favorite color is black.
Mm-hmm.
And in many things, my favorite color is black because it's classic. But in things that are colors I actually like to wear, it would be blue, olive green. Like, yeah, navy blues, olive greens. Or more neutral colors.
So, cool colors to neutrals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Last question. Since you mentioned clothes. Favorite item of clothing that you are currently wearing? Like, that
I currently have?
Yes.
Oh, goodness. I feel like I should have the answer to this. I recently bought, they're really basic t-shirts, cotton t-shirts, but they're very comfortable. They're probably my favorite thing right now.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all the questions I have.
Dang, this was fun. I wanted to keep going. I like hearing myself talk.
Wow. I thought you said you didn't like smart aleck people.
I'm not a smart aleck.
Really?
When I'm talking about myself, I'm the only person who knows myself.
I am the expert.
I am the expert on myself.
Well, thank you on that note. Thank you for setting this episode up perfectly for me with all of the transitions because
You're very welcome.
You know, that was all due to your brilliant mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
See, my job as a host is harder because of the fact that you just take us on rabbit trails and are scatterbrained.
Yeah.
See, I know how to set you up so that you seem like
that
you
I
should
look
always be
good?
the host for every episode.
Oh my goodness. Well, thanks for making me look good. Very much appreciated. Okay, well that's all, folks, for today.
No, we have to like close off with Instagram and everything.
Yes, I was just gonna do that. Jeez, I was looking good, and then you just said that.
I'm sorry.
No. So that's all for this episode. go ahead and follow us on Instagram at Time to Talk so you can keep up to date on episodes being released, different questions and Q&A things that we're asking you all, playing games with your friends.
And I want to know, too, obviously don't tell us which one is your favorite twin because I'll delete those comments. But I would like to know which twin you resonate most with, which one you're most like, whether it's Grace or myself. Because that would be interesting to see amongst our listeners.
Yes, because our next episode will be Faith turning the tables and interviewing me. She's going to resume being a host because she just can't give that seat up.
And then we do want to eventually down the road record an episode, a Q&A episode, or an Ask Me Anything episode, whichever one you want to use, taking your questions for us and answering all of those to the best of our ability.
So if you've liked this episode, hit the subscribe button, leave a rating and review so other people can find it.
And until next time, cue the cool music.